Card King, here I come. Hello, music fans, music collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the program, I welcome to the show Canadian heavy metal rock icon. He is the lead vocalist of the legendary Canadian heavy metal band Anvil. I welcome to the program Steve, a.k.a. Lips Kudlow. Steve, great to have you.
Great to be had.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. And, Steve, I watched the Anvil documentary, which got me interested in reaching out to you. And for my USA listeners who may not be familiar with the band, give us an intro to the band Anvil.
Well, we started out in basically late 77. But I've been playing with the drummer since 1973, so it's a lifetime, really. We didn't get a record deal till 1980, late 80 or something like that. Our first album was called Hard and Heavy, and we've put out 20 studio albums since that time. Long history. been to hell and back, and I can honestly say I've had a great life and a great time. So that's a basic fundamental background right there.
Yeah, now, I noticed a few things that I picked up watching Anvil, YouTube videos. I noticed a few things. The first thing I noticed that you were really a trailblazer of pioneering the vibrating sound on the guitar. And I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with that idea?
Well, initially, when we first started out, we called the band Lips after my nickname, and it was somewhat modeled really after Ted Nugent in a certain sense, because I was the center of the band, and the other guitar player sang a couple songs, but generally the lineup was somewhat of a Ted Nugent kind of lineup, where you got the lead guitarist, lead vocalist as the main guy, and with a name like Lips, it was suggestive. It was risque in a certain sense, and originally all the songs were supposed to be about sex. not like the Mentors, but more subdued in a certain sense. You know what I mean? A little more hidden, not as brazenly vulgar. Okay. Trying to be somewhat intelligent about how we use the double meanings in our lyrics. But in doing so, when we first went out, we were trying to think of things that would make us memorable to an audience. And what happened was, of course, we were, we drape all kinds of things, like put bras and boas and panties and hang them from the mic stands and stuff like that. That was the first initial ideas, and then of course having songs like Bedroom Game and AC/DC, which was about a girl who went both ways. It wasn't about the band. That's the first album stuff, right? And what happened was, I remembered when I was a little kid. Of course, I started playing guitar at a very young age when I was still playing with toys, and I had it like a motorized little toy called a motorific. And it was basically a car that it was interchangeable parts, and it had a little electric motor in it that ran by batteries, a batterized little motor. And one day I had the little toy right near the guitar, and I could hear the sound of the little motor coming through the pickup and into the amplifier. And I'm going, wow, that's really cool. So, as you get closer, going, wow, that's wow, you don't, as a kid, you're going, wow, that's amazing. But there's nothing amazing about a magnet with a coil being spun in front of a pickup. Of course, the pickup's going to pick it up. But did I know that when I was 10? No, I found out. So there I was at about, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. And there was a company called Consumers Distributing. And the way that these guys worked is you'd go into the shop and you'd fill out what you see in their catalog, and write down the serial number. Go up to the front desk, hand them the piece of paper with the serial number, and then they bring you the products. Well, in this magazine, they had vibrators for $3, and I saw that and I went, I got a great idea. I'm going to play my guitar with that.
Wow. I mean, yeah, go ahead. No, this is interesting because at that age, I mean, to think of these concepts, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You were destined to do this for a living.
Well, I had made the decision. I had made the decision when I was 10 years old what I was going to do with my life. As insane as that sounds. But my brother, as a witness, would tell you that I stood in the living room when I was 10 years old, when I first got my first electric guitar, and I go, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
And I did.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Now, you were finishing the story about the vibrator, the vibrating sound.
So, of course, it was a very hard plastic vibrator, which of course opened up the idea that I could use it as for bottleneck, which is a technique on a guitar where normally you would use either a piece of metal tubing or a piece of glass. Originally, it was a piece of bottle, like a pop bottle. In the early days, of course, if the blues guys, they bust a wine bottle and just stick their finger in the end and use the bottle, the broken piece of bottle, to slide on against the strings, and of course you don't fret. So it has a fluid sound. Everybody's heard the sound of bottleneck. Johnny Winter, Dwayne Allman. I mean, these are guys that were greatly known for using those techniques. And of course the sound of the motor. But as time went on, I perfected all this stuff and discovered that, well, I need something that varies in modulation. So they make vibrators with a speed control on it. A variable speed control, so that you could, it revs, you can go whoa, up and down. So it almost became musical in a certain sense. And then, of course, being influenced and inspired by Eddie Van Halen, I started realizing, hey, you can do hammer-ons with this thing. You could do bottleneck. You could bang the strings with it. You could run the vibrator through it. So it had a multitude of things that it could be done with it. And of course, I worked it into the songs, where it became musical, where I'm actually play sections that are lead guitar. Really, it's lead guitar being done with a vibrator, aside from just the noise that comes out of it. So and truth be told, it's not easy. It looks easy, but I beg anybody to try it, and you'll find out it's not so easy, especially doing hammer-ons. You're using the tip of the vibrator to tap on the strings. So how good can you do that? It's not like using your finger, is it? So it takes a certain amount of dexterity and practice for it to actually become a fluid and usable sort of thing. So yeah, that's how it all came to be.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, so that really stood out to me. Your sound on the guitar, and another thing that stood out to me was the wardrobes that you guys wore. Late '70s, early into '81. I mean, there wasn't anything like that I recall as far as your competitors were doing this in Canada.
No, I mean, the leather with studs really began once again with Ted Nugent with his armband things. The really big, long, extended one with all the studs in it. I mean, I don't know if anybody even remembers it, but that's really somewhat the origins of where that really began. Of course, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and all the bands in England started wearing studded leather, and I just took it, took it, took the influence and inspiration and created stuff. Not only the armbands, but then, of course, I guess you could call it a bondage suit. They were straps that you strap yourself in, and they had they're all studded and stuff like that. So it's, and of course, sexual because it's still tied in with what the whole idea of what the band was originally when we were called Lips. But once we changed to the name Anvil, that sort of stuff kind of fell to the side. It wasn't as imperative to go there because it wasn't as centered. And by the time 1983 came around, I stopped wearing the bondage suit. I stopped wearing the stuff. I was just wearing, cut off jean jackets and stuff like that. I moved away from it. Particularly on the tour that we did with Motorhead. When they call it the Glory Days, our Glory Days was one full-on tour through the UK with Motorhead, and things changed. That was in '83. I didn't wear the bondage suit, stopped wearing it. And it wasn't until '84 that I brought it back for one show in Japan, right?
Uh-huh.
Which we made the Metal on Metal video for that, and I was wearing a bondage suit. Beyond that, there was another point that still had the bondage suit that I made some kind of new one and had like long fringes, and it was red. And my guitar had all kinds of lip stickers all over it, and that was like one-off tour in '87 or something like that. And I've never looked back, never bothered with that stuff ever since. So, but I mean, it's a history. It's stuff goes out of style. Obviously, you're not going to be doing that. Much like high screaming singing, that's pretty much gone these days. It sounds ridiculous when you hear it. Why is that guy screaming like a woman? It's a guy, like I think a lot of things have changed in the metal world. What becomes in style and what goes out, what comes in, what goes out, and all the variables. Plus, yeah, go ahead.
No, we're talking with Lips Kudlow of Anvil, who's with us this morning. And Lips, I did not know this until I read the band's biography. I did not know that the big four of thrash metal, the big four groups, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, these four bands were all inspired by Anvil.
Well, we came before them.
Yeah.
Well, we came before them. It's like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Uriah Heep, and Robin Trower and Jimi Hendrix and the Cream and all that influenced me because they're older than I am, right? So that's what it's really about. It's not about how much money these other bands make or how popular they were. It's the influence. Influence is a completely different thing. It's like Budgie, 20 albums, no commercial hits. You know what I mean? They're not big. And when they got big, it was because Metallica did one of their songs.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
here you got Scott Ian of Anthrax saying they listened to you in '82. I mean, they were inspired by Metal on Metal.
right. But I was influenced by the stuff that came from England in the 70s. So, everything has its origins, right?
Uh, yeah, I guess. But I want to ask you, Lips, Metal on Metal, recording that, that song, that album. Did you have any idea how big that would become?
Oh, hell no, of course not. No clue. How could you? I mean, it's the same thing. Deep Purple put out Machine Head, and they thought the song Never Before was going to be the big hit. They had no idea it was going to be Smoke on the Water. How are you going to know that? The people tell you what you are, you know? You think you know what you are, but really the people know what you are and who you are. That's really the people decide, and they decide to the point where how many records you sell and how big you get or how popular, right? So it's really all up to the people, and you take cues from it, and you know where to go and how to get there.
And Lips, I got to ask you, '82. I got to ask you this question. You probably asked all the time. The invitation to join Motorhead. How did that come about?
Well, in '81, we opened for Motorhead. It was our first show after we changed our name from Lips to Anvil, and our first album first had just come out. And Lemmy loved the band. He thought we were awesome. He thought there were too many changes, too many hard parts. But aside from that, he thought we were awesome. Um, and he knew how enthusiastic and my blues based background and rock and roll. So we came to a show in '83, actually in late '82, when and Eddie Clark quit that night. He was here in Toronto, and I went backstage. We were all backstage and hanging out, and the show ended early because Lemmy wasn't feeling well, and that prompted Eddie Clark, Fast Eddie, to quit the band. Well, the next morning, the phone rings and it's Motorhead's manager going, "We need Lips, man, to come out and join Motorhead, man. Our guitar player just walked out." And of course, at that particular moment, I'm in the middle of recording the Forged in Fire album. I'm not going anywhere. You can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not only contractually, but in a certain sense, spiritually involved, man. You don't leave your buddies, man. In mid swing, it's like you're in the middle of a baseball game and you're up to bat, and it's like, I'm going to quit this team. I'm joining another team. And I don't think so.
So, so
That's
still,
sort of what happened. So I couldn't do it. Lemmy was pissed. There's no lying about it. He was not happy about it because he thought that and he may have been very right. It could have been really magical. But as it turned out, I didn't end up doing it, and he got Brian Robertson to do it. A few months later, after they had recorded the Another Perfect Day, and we were just getting ready to put out Forged in Fire, we met up at a festival in Belgium called Heavy Sound Festival, and Lemmy pulls me aside and pulls me into the change room, and he sticks some headphones on. He says, "Listen to this, you're gonna love it." And it was Another Perfect Day, and of course I listened to it and I loved the album, and I'm going, "Who the hell did you get to play guitar? It's amazing." And he told me it was the guitar player from Thin Lizzy, and of course, wow, I'm freaking out, man. This is great. Next thing I hear is Lemmy's asked Anvil to open up all through the UK on that tour. So that's how it ended up the way it did, and we were connected really all the way to the end, all the way to the end. Lemmy was a great friend, a great guy, like an older brother. just awesome.
Yeah, even to this day, Lips, no regrets on that decision.
Well, how do you? Well, how? There's a regret, but you can't. What do you do to change it?
Right, right. I'm just thinking how different. Imagine if you joined Motorhead, how different the Motorhead guitar sound, would have been with your
Well,
style of play.
the thing is, you got to imagine what Motorhead might have sounded like doing Winged Assassins or Motor Mount or Butterbus Jerky. You know what I mean? There's similarities, but it's not. You know what I mean? Anvil's a separate entity. I didn't want to give up. I didn't give up my own identity, which is important. And here
I,
I am, some 45, 50 years later, still at it
yeah,
with 20
you're right.
albums of my own. I did it on my own. And 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 I dare say I did it without ever having to sell out, and I never will. And that was my intention. You know, people go, "Hey man, you never made it big." Hey, who wants to make it big? I wanted to stay in the underground, and I did. Because that's precisely where metal belongs. You don't you don't make pop songs. You're not Madonna. You know what I mean? You're not you're not you're not Lady Gaga. You're not you know what I mean? You're not a pop artist. You're metal. And real metal does not really belong on commercial radio. Not really. It's something that people listen to in their living room and in their cars and in their headphones when they want to rock out. That's what it really is, man. It's metal music. It's its own thing. And it belongs sort of in the underground. That's where it flourishes. And like the fans are all about the obscure. As soon as everybody knows who the band is, it's over to a great degree. There's half a dozen, super big bands, and that's it. And even in that case, they're barely on the radio, right? So my initial ideas of what metal is and where it belongs are correct, whether people want to believe that or not. But the world is a very judgmental place. If you don't make millions of dollars, you haven't made it. But meanwhile, you can be in an independent hardware store and make a living your whole fucking life, right? Or you can be Home Depot, right? But just because you're a local hardware store doesn't mean you haven't made a good living and had a good life. And that's precisely the same criteria when we talk about rock and roll. You can be an obscure musician and make a living for your whole life and have a great life. And you know what? The guy who ultimately wins the prize is the guy who has recorded the most songs. That's who wins.
Interesting. And I have a couple of minutes, but I want to get this in with your Lips. The '84 World Tour with the Scorpions, Bon Jovi, White Snake. That must have been
It wasn't a
fascinating.
world tour. It was a Japanese short run. We did like 5 cities.
You did 5 cities. Just being
Yeah.
around those guys. I mean, you picked up a lot. A lot. You learned a lot just being around those legendary artists.
Well, if nothing else, I had a great time. What are you picking up? What are you picking up? What am I going to pick up from Bon Jovi that's going to be useful for Anvil, right?
Like you said, you're your own identity. You're your own man.
I already have an identity. I had an identity when I went up there, when I was doing it, and it's I don't know that I learned anything really. Other than you write a good jingle and you got a hit single and you're a big band. That's what I saw happen, which I didn't want to do and never have and still haven't and won't. I'm not interested in that. It's not what metal is about. And certainly I could have picked up a cover tune,
Uh-huh.
right? There are things I could have, you can say shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I never did because that's selling out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to become that big. Who the hell wants that? No, the theaters opening slots. That's the best world. I've had
And,
a great run, man. Absolutely phenomenal.
and Lips, before I say goodbye, I want to ask you: happy with the Anvil documentary, the way it turned out?
Oh, of course, magical. Something like that only happens once, and only to one band. You're not going to get that. You're not going to see anybody else to do that again.
All right, so I have 1 minute left. So what's down the pipeline for you?
What's down the pipeline? Well, we're going to be coming out to the USA.
All
Hopefully,
right.
if we get our work papers in time, which has become a real issue these days, we're going to come out probably next May or June or in July and do another full on run all through the States. But this time it's pounding the past. The first three albums will be centered on in the set, and that's what we're doing.
Steve, this was great. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, man, no problem.
Take care of
Have a good
yourself.
day, guys. All the best to everybody.
And you just heard from Steve Lips Kudlow of Anvil. Until next week, happy collecting to all.